Hello and welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Happy Tuesday. It is How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is it's a video series here on my channel where every week we discuss one of the 78 card tarot. And the beginning of the video, we go ahead and talk about the symbols and the meanings that pertain to the card. And then the second part of the video is where you, the viewer, get to choose from one of 3 tarot decks. From that tarot deck, I will do a quick spread to see how that card, the one that we're discussing, manifests in your life. The 3 decks that I choose, the first deck is always the Rider-Waite-Smith. The second and third decks are decks that I choose that I think have the best symbolism that helps correlate with the card that we're discussing. If you ever want to skip straight to your reading, please, you're welcome to do so. The timestamps are in the description box below. And we'll go ahead and get started. Now, today is going to be a fun one. We are talking about the Two of Swords. It is the second card in the sword suit. And I just wanted to share, before we jump into the how-to part, I wanted to share, I thought I got such a chuckle because I have an Instagram account where I post, I pull cards for myself personally all the time. And I feel like a lot of collective energy kind of comes through the cards sometimes. And last night I pulled cards for today's energy, and I thought this was so amazing from the Gospel of the Arcadia by Stacey Demarco. I got this card, which is Peacemaking, and it has 2 swords, right? And I just thought that was, I was so floored by that. I get synchronicities in my daily card pool a lot, and I do try to post it over on my Instagram if you ever get a chance, if you want to follow over there. I post pictures of cards, and I try to, I need to be better about alerting when the How to Tarot is posted. I haven't been doing that so much over on the Instagram account, but I've definitely been posting other things, and my synchronicities in the daily card pool is one of them. Now, I wanted to go ahead, since we got the Peacemaking card, and this is more of an oracle deck, so the Gospel of the Arcadia is more of a, it is more of a Wiccan deck, but it's got some really beautiful messages in it. This was actually gifted to me by one of my, a fellow tarot reader. I'm in a group of readers that meet periodically, not so much since the pandemic began, but I wanted to go ahead and read what the book said about the card, and then we'll jump in the how-to part, because I thought it was so cool. I thought that was such a good omen, since I'm pulling this card on the day that I'm filming the video for the Two of Swords. So, peacemaking. Peace comes from within. Do not rely upon others or outside influences for permission to be peaceful. Never make decisions when you are angry or are experiencing any other intense emotion. Learn how to ground yourself. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for the other person. I just think that's very prophetic, because I'm going to kind of integrate that meaning. Again, I feel like that message is meant to be included with the other interpretations, and I just think that's really powerful. So I wanted to read that, and I thought that was really cool. The other thing I just wanted to throw out before we get started is that each week I pick the decks, and I have quite a few decks. Sorry, I'm a card reader, and I love the art of it, and I love and honestly I try to use my decks. Any card deck that I purchase, I keep in rotation. If I don't use it, then I force myself to let it go. But there are a few weeks that when I pull the decks, when I'm choosing the decks, it's like an audition. I feel like it's like America's Got Talent or something. I feel like I'm auditioning my decks to see, okay, which Two of Swords are we using? And there were quite a few front runners for this one. A few weeks, it's just very cut and dry. A few weeks, with a few cards, it's like, okay, I know my top 3, without even having to pull them out. But then sometimes I actually have to pull out the decks and kind of compare them. And I do post that also over on Instagram sometimes. If I'm having a hard time, I'll say, okay, which one should I choose? And I kind of take an opinion poll over there. So also another reason to follow me over there if you get a chance. But this week was a little bit tough. Was a little bit tough. One of the decks actually came up with the Two of Swords in, I think, last week's weekly energy card reading, and that's the Anna Kay. So the third deck that I was choosing was very, very difficult. The Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant was a real contender as well, as was the Star Seeker Tarot. But the middle deck, I went ahead and decided to go with vice versa. Sometimes when I'm choosing a deck, I kind of go, when I'm really stumped, I really rely on gut instinct. And what I say is, okay, which one comes to mind first? When I think of the Two of Swords, what image jumps into my head when I'm thinking about this meaning of it? And the vice versa definitely jumped to mind. So I think we've got our top three very well selected this week. So without further ado, the Two of Swords. In the Two of Swords, you see a woman sitting on a bench, a cement bench, and she's sitting in front of what looks like a water terrain. The floor looks like civilization. It looks like a very smooth paved pavement. But in the background, you see mountains and you see, still waters, right? Or the waters look a little bit choppy, right? Like something might be stirring underneath. She's blindfolded, almost like Justice, and she's holding two swords completely parallel across the center of her chest. In the background, you see a waxing crescent moon, which means it's that moon phase is when the moon has gone new, but it's not quite a week old yet. It's not first quarter. First quarter is after the moon is new and you're a week in. That's first quarter. So we're about halfway, and she has an expression of a complete impartiality. She's wearing a very white robe, as if that of a either someone who's very chaste or someone who is very pure, someone who is unaffected, right? You think of brides, or you think of somebody who is not knowing of something. So someone new, someone new and pure, someone untainted by any other type of thought. And the balance of these swords are completely not vertical, but at an angle, but they are completely perpendicular, completely balanced in her two hands. So when you look at that, the first thing that comes to mind is you think impasse, right? And impasse is like you've got two swords, right? Like when you look at Justice, she has one sword. She's holding it completely vertically upright. And these two swords look really uncomfortable to be holding in that position, right? Because they're not completely upright. They're at this kind of not quite horizontal angle, right? So it's almost like it really does look like this woman who's completely blindfolded is in a position to put one of them down, right? And when it comes to the two, anytime you think of a two, twos mean choice, right? Or it means two, when it comes to swords, it means two thoughts, right? Two thoughts. And when you're holding them like that, could you imagine? I mean, I always I feel for this poor woman's wrist. I don't know if anybody else has carpal tunnel, but hey, that doesn't look comfortable, right? It doesn't look comfortable. And so the first thing that you kind of think of, especially when water means emotions and hills or mountains kind of mean conflict, right? She's away from conflict, but there's water in the background, which kind of means that looks like it's kind of churning, right? It's not completely still. That water has little dimples of waves in it, right? And if you've ever fished or gone to the ocean, I mean, when you see waves, you know that waves don't happen on their own, right? There's something under the surface, right? Something churning, There's churning there. And so the first thing that you think of is some kind of block, right? Some kind of block. Her two wrists are holding two thoughts across the completely equally in a very uncomfortable position directly across her chest, right? Across her heart, across the heart chakra. Honestly, if you think about that, if you think of dots in a line going directly up her body. But the rigid posture really kind of tells us that there's a struggle going on here, right? There's a struggle. The surface that she sits on, that slab, right? It doesn't even look like a comfortable chair. It kind of looks like a very sterile environment, and it looks like, what it kind of looks like is it looks like a very controlled situation. It is controlled. And what you have is you have swords, which are thoughts, and then you have water, a whole lot of water. Because when you think about it, you got two swords, and look at how much water. That water takes up more than 3/4 of the image of the card. So that what it really means is it means mind over heart, right? Mind over heart. Those are two thoughts. And with the white and the blindfold, it's almost like she's refusing to see, right? Refusing to see. We're holding our thoughts, we're holding our swords in one position. We're not changing that position. It's an uncomfortable position, but we're holding it there, right? We're refusing to move. And so it seems like someone is fending off someone, because it does. It looks like it's not a position of attack, but it is definitely a position of defense. It's nothing is getting in and nothing is coming out, right? You're not getting in. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. And the first thing that we think of when we see this is that it's someone who's having a really tight rein over their emotions. It's like someone's deadlocked, right? And I always, when you think about the progression from the ace to the two, right? The ace is always that start, that springboard, right? It's that jumping point. And when you have an ace of swords, that's a really, like we talked about last week, that's a really strong idea. It's a mental launching point, right? But then, just like when you begin an idea, and when you think about it, you can think about any wonderful idea that you've had. Oh, well, let me get married. Let me buy a house. Let me have kids. And then once you actually start getting into the real world of that idea, don't we all have a few second thoughts? When the kids are screaming and the house mortgage, the roof's leaking, and you're like, okay, why did I agree to this, right? The other thing that I was kind of thinking is, just like we talked about how the ace can develop based on your energy, right? If it's a solid, good idea, you can follow an ace through to conclusion. But what kind of happens is when it's an ace of thought, when it's an ace of swords, sometimes you can have a great idea, but then as you start not even that far down the path, okay, I'm going to follow this idea, you can start getting ideas, you can start getting, when you start trying to apply that idea in the real world, you can start getting a little bit of pushback, right? Just like, it's funny, I've had, I really care about environmental issues, and there's quite a few times that I'm like, well, the solution to this problem is this. And, that's kind of like the ace of swords, right? Well, that's a great idea. Let's follow it. And then not even 2 steps down the road, and it's like, oh, well, you're going to walk into that block, right? You're going to walk into that block, 2 swords crossing each other. Okay, well, that was a brilliant idea, but, Earth to Querent, Earth to Shelley, there's reasons why this, isn't just done, across the board. So sometimes that can be the reason. And what it is, being so close to the ace, maybe you don't want to hear that, maybe you don't want to hear that. It's really kind of saying like, well, I just want to stick with my ace. I want my ace to be right. I don't want this second follow-up to cross my original idea. So, and again, her wearing all white, it's almost like keeping in the ignorance of your first idea, not wanting anything to cross it or to counteract it, right? Because These two, it's like these swords are going opposite directions, but they're completely perpendicular to one another, right? Now, the other thing is that a lot of times it's denying someone's own true feelings. So, the first and foremost, it usually means a lot of blocked emotions. When you see that much water and you can see something churning under the surface, this really does look like somebody who was refusing to acknowledge something, right? There's a great cartoon meme. I wish I need to remember the name of the artist because I like to give credit to the artist. I know it's a shame, artwork will go viral and sometimes it doesn't give credit to the creator, which is a dishonor to the creator. But there's it's like a little cartoon dog who's sitting in like a saloon and everything is on fire, like the whole room's on fire, and he's got big eyes and he's like, this is fine, I'm fine, we're fine. That's kind of like the Two of Swords. It's like you got the water is churning, right? The water's churning, and yet the woman is sitting there and she's staying in her head, right? She's staying in her head. She's not acknowledging that there's something under the surface, right? She's not acknowledging that that water's there and moving. She's like she's staying on her concrete slab. She's staying where it's sterile and clean and dry. And you notice this is very simplistic. Where she's sitting, there's no furniture other than the slab she's sitting on. She's standing on a slab, right? She's not acknowledging that anything is around her. She doesn't want anything around her. So a lot of times that can also mean stifling like a natural response. Maybe you want to be upset, maybe you do want to feel feelings, maybe you're feeling something about an idea or a situation. A lot of times it's keeping it's keeping something that you know to be true under wraps, right? I do kind of see this as being if there's a fact that's being brought to your attention but you don't want to see it, you don't want to acknowledge it, and that's what's churning under the surface. It's almost like a lot of times it is that head over heart. It's most definitely head over heart. It's like your head's keeping you in check, because I think the other thing with it being air and water, and can I just say, as being a sun sign air and a moon in a water sign, a lot of times I get the Two of Swords because I want to keep my emotions in check. It's almost like she's afraid to leave her mind, right? She wants to stay in the purity and the simplicity of her mind, because if she takes the blindfold off and sees those waves start to come in, it's going to be overwhelming, right? But a lot of times that's keeping the blinders on, where there might be a hard truth that you need to look at and you're refusing to take the blinders off, right? You're staying in ignorance. A lot of times it can be turning a deaf ear to something. Maybe someone's trying to warn you about something and you don't. And again, remember Ace going into the two. Maybe you have one perception of something and someone's really trying to come up and caution you that there's something else. This does show up a lot. If this shows up next to court cards, it can be like a friend trying to warn you about something. I remember one time in high school, I had to have a very difficult conversation. I had a male friend who started dating this girl who was very popular with the guys, if you know what I mean. And I don't like to speak ill of anyone. It was really uncomfortable for me to do that because I'd never done that before. But I had to walk up to him and say, look, you know that she's seeing other guys in addition to you, right? I think she's playing you. And it's funny, he really went off on me. He turned around and was like, how dare you? You're just jealous because she's prettier than you are. And I was like, oh, okay. And looking back on it, I was like, wow, that would have really been like a Two of Swords moment. But it's almost like he probably kind of knew it, but didn't want to acknowledge it. And me, I was probably coming in like the Knight of Swords, really. But and then the irony is that probably about 3 weeks later, he walked up to me and apologized and said, yeah, I found out that she was seeing three, not even one other guy. She was seeing three other guys. And then it turned out that she got into a real problem because everybody found out about the other person. It was a total, not my circus, not my monkeys, but I was just trying to protect my friend. But you kind of see that, that's when someone doesn't want to see, so you sometimes unfortunately do see that in situations where you might know, like you might be getting a gut feeling, or your emotions might be crying out to you, hey, there's something up here, but you're like, no, I'm in my thought, my opinion on this situation is this. And it's a lot of times it's because you're afraid of being overwhelmed. Those waves are just, they're rippling now, and you're afraid that they're going to turn into a full-on tsunami, right? Now, a lot of times, again, it can be being defensive, just like my friend was. A lot of times it can be maintaining your cool as well, right? And we'll go ahead and we'll go into the second deck, which is the Vice Versa Tarot, which I think is really beautiful. The lighting doesn't do this justice. This card is actually very gorgeous. She has like lightning, and she really does have like a lot of churned up motions, but you see her expression, it's so tranquil, it's like numb, neutral. And in this deck, the swords actually glow red and blue, which is almost like the waters in Temperance. It's like, male. It's the symbols of divine masculine, divine feminine, and when you think about the symbols of divine masculine and feminine, that can be sun and moon as well. So sometimes that can be somebody's ego versus your emotions. So that's one of the reasons I really wanted to go with this card, is because it can be very much that. Maybe you're trying to maintain your dignity, or keep your ego in check. Like maybe there is some kind of betrayal going on. Like if you see this next to the Five of Swords or the Seven of Swords, oh gosh, and all of those are in the Swords family, so that would be some a real drama that might be going on, maybe in a public scale where people are talking, and that's always a harsh thing whenever whenever your personal business is being aired on a, and if it's next to Pentacles, or if it's next to Pentacles, it might even be a work situation where you're just trying to save face. But when I look at this card, especially this, sometimes it can be that somebody really did, like if you see this next to a Cups card, maybe someone really did hurt you or betrayed you, or possibly if it's a breakup, it could be really you just keeping a strong face on, even though underneath the surface you got some lightning going, if I wanted to, really go off the hook, I could, but instead I'm gonna rein it in and pretend like I'm cool as a cucumber, even though you're feeling kind of stabby. But a lot of times but most of the time it does kind of mean avoidance. When you look at that, you see her ankles crossed and you see her arms crossed. It's just kind of like inaccessibility is a lot of times what it means. It just kind of means, because when you think about open body language, crossed ankles and crossed arms, that really is like there is no getting through that border, A lot of times it's us, we avoid looking at the truth and we just pretend like everything's okay. Either that, or maybe you have a situation where you really have to put on a front. And playing into the card that came out of the Gospel of the Arcadia, the other thing is that, it is kind of like maintaining your own peace in a sense. Because again, it talked about forgiveness and about how your well-being, you taking care of you, is more important than anybody else, right? And if you do have emotions like that going on under the surface, sometimes you do just kind of have to say, screw the world, I don't care what anybody's saying about me, I'm going to keep, it's almost like I do kind of see this card as being a little bit of the damage control card. If you do work in like a media sense, like maybe if you are, and nowadays you don't even have to be a celebrity to be that. Maybe you have a YouTube channel, maybe you have a TikTok channel, or again, maybe even just in your circle of friends, if there was some kind of drama, maybe you had a fight with a friend, maybe you had a breakup, maybe there was some deception involved, and all of a sudden you kind of have to close yourself off in order to kind of mentally project an image, or verbally. The other thing is, I do also see this as, when, what I almost kind of see. I see this card really coming up. If you have, like, say for instance, you have a friend that just went through a breakup, or just went through something, maybe even something really humiliating that happened in a public scale, like on social media, and then all of a sudden they're kind of putting up the damage control posts, like, oh well, I'm going off the grid for a while, or, we've amicably separated. I ask for privacy and respect at this time. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like the default, don't, leave me alone. I'm going through it. Just don't come here. But most of the time, when you see this in a romantic situation, and actually we'll go ahead and go to the third deck, which is the Anna, and you see the same waxing crescent moon. And again, the thing about this is that what I think is so interesting is that waxing crescent moon is in both it's in a lot of the cards. And what that is that moon is a few days out from the new moon. And honestly, guys, if you're watching this video at the time it posts, on, what is it, the 22nd, you guys are in that phase. Actually, we're probably first quarter moon at this point, but we had a new moon on the 17th. And so right around this last weekend, the 19th, 20th, that would be when this waxing crescent that you're seeing is in the sky. It's a few days after a new moon. So what that tells me is, and again, new is the ace, right? 3 days after that is the 2, So what you're kind of seeing is, there could have been something that just hit, right? New moon in the sky, waxing. So you could have the waves coming in, right? And this is amazing, because you see a foyer here, and you see waves throwing sand up onto the foyer, and there's nothing to block it, right? And this person's just walking away. They're pretending like, they're not even getting a broom. They're not even getting a mop. They're like, no, just let it come in, right? So most of the time it is avoidance. It's like, it's being afraid to act, right? Maybe you're afraid to act, or, you're staying stuck, right? You have all these emotions going on, or you have something that's really about to flood your house, right? About to come in, and it's very emotional, but you're refusing to decide, right? So the other thing is, with it being verbal and it being the 2, a lot of times it can be a choice. Maybe it's a choice that you have to make. Maybe it's, if you see this next to the lovers is a 6, but the lovers is a choice. Maybe if you see this other next to other 2s, it could be quite possible, based on the surrounding cards, you might have to make a very important decision, but you're not. And that decision's not going away. It's flooding, it's coming in, right? It's coming in. It's not gonna just, the waves are not gonna recede. You got to do something, right? You have to do something. So in that same vein, sometimes it can be you upholding the status quo. If you see the 2 of Swords next to, like, the Hierophant, or possibly the 10 of Pentacles, sometimes this could be you remaining silent, even though there could be something going on that you are against, or that you need to speak up against. Sometimes maybe your family is asking you to do something that you don't want to do, or again, it could be something as not as small as, but maybe your family wants you to go into a certain career path, but you don't want to, but you're like not speaking up, you're not telling them, and the first day of college is coming, and you're like, okay, I still haven't told them. It's like you're afraid to act, afraid to speak. The other thing is that sometimes it can just be, so, and a lot of times it's being afraid to rock the boat, right? Sometimes this can be in a work context. If you see the 2 of Swords next to, like, the Emperor, or maybe a King in reverse, it could be that maybe your boss is really wanting you to do stuff and you don't want to, but you're not going to rock the boat, right? You're not going to tell anybody no. sometimes it could be that you feel something truly, and most of the time it's like staying on the fence about something or someone, you know. And with the amount of water that's in the card, when you see this next to a cups card, it usually means that it usually means a situation where um, you're refusing to look at the facts about something, or you might be dealing with somebody who is just giving you the cold shoulder. Not so much that they want to, but you can just tell that they have a stone face. They have a stone wall up. They're refusing to connect to their feelings. So, for instance, um, it could be that you're trying to approach someone and they're really not, they're not communicating. Or last Saturday we talked in the weekly energy card reading about how when people keep things on a real surface level, like if you say, yeah, the weather's great, how's the weather today, the weather's great. If you get around someone that that you have a deep connection with, and they're just talking about the weather, or they just kind of nod and don't make eye contact with you, it might be that really there's something underneath the surface that they're refusing to face, right? Or maybe you're refusing to face. Um, but a lot of times it's just a lot of times it can be ignoring the warning signs. Again, you look at all this flooding going on. It can be, maybe there's something in the situation that your instincts is really sending you, danger, Will Robinson kind of symbols or warnings about. So sometimes that can be you staying in a relationship where something's going on, or maybe you do know that someone's lying to you, but you don't ask them about it, or you don't face it. You kind of stay in the purity, right? You stay in that sterile, unknowing, ignorant mindset. You don't want to take the blindfold off. But sometimes it can be closing your eyes to what's going on. So if it's a situation where maybe, again, maybe some underhanded stuff is going on, if you see the Seven of Swords next to this, or if you see the devil, or possibly any other signs of like underhandedness, or sometimes I do see this next to the devil card, where if you are in a situation, and to get real for a minute, because the cards get really real, maybe you do have somebody in your family, or you might be dating somebody who has addiction issues. We've all heard about the pink elephant in the middle of the room. The elephant's right there. It's taking up the center of the space, but no one wants to acknowledge that it's there. So sometimes you could see this if you're dealing dealing with a situation or a person who's just really. A lot of times you do also see this when somebody is putting you in that position where they want you to pretend like everything's okay and it's not. Because they're asking you. It's really choosing not to know, right? It's choosing not to know. Now, lastly, what I kind of see when I see this is a lot of times it is about waiting or delaying the inevitable. Um, you know, um, as a Libra, the other thing is I'm a real peacekeeper type of person, but I've said in other videos, it's funny, it's like being a Libra, you're supposed to balance, and even though we like peace, it's our job to deal with the unpleasantness and make it balanced. It isn't our job to turn the other way and pretend like the unpleasantness isn't happening, right? But a lot of times that is what this kind of means. It's almost like you're keeping in your kind of pure little happy world, while other things, you need to, almost like the justice card, you got to take that blindfold off and manage. You have to handle what's going on. Now, when it comes to, sometimes it can be feeling overwhelmed, like sometimes maybe you've got a lot going on in your life and you are just staying in your head, because again, if you check in with your emotions, you feel like you'll be, you know, like the tide is just gonna, carry you away. Like the emotions are just you know, gonna be like a tsunami. And then the other thing is, a lot of times When you look at this, one final thing is that it can be flat out suppressing your feelings. Suppressing your feelings. Maybe you're angry about something. Maybe you're really hurt. Maybe you're sad. Maybe you're depressed. But you're just acting like, you're keeping your mind is pinning down your emotions, right? Your mind is, you're shifting away from what it is. And just one other thing is that because it's swords, sometimes, normally journaling is a good way to exercise your emotions when you're actually journaling about what's upsetting you. But sometimes the mind can be keeping yourself busy, almost like keeping yourself in your head space, like keeping yourself in the right brain so the left brain doesn't get its time. But I can almost promise you, the one danger with the Two of Swords is that those emotions are like a tiger in a cage, and you can keep that tiger in the cage. You can try to keep the lock on it, but it's just going to come out more angry if you suppress it, right? So one other thing that I kind of see, and I have this card come up a lot, is that sometimes you might be keeping yourself distracted, because the mental part of it, the swords being the mind. So it's more of an action card with the wands, but maybe you're keeping yourself busy in order to not deal with your emotions, right? And I'm guilty of this too. I have a lot of hobbies, right? I have a lot of hobbies. I like to sew, I like to scrapbook, I like to go for walks. And sometimes it can be doing that. Sometimes it could be doing that. Maybe you go out with your friends for coffee, and then you have brunch, and then you go to a movie, and then you come home and you crochet stuff, and then you talk to your parents on the phone. You're just doing everything that you can to not have to deal with some kind of an emotional problem that you have going on. It's almost like you don't want to face it. So sometimes it can be avoiding that. And last but not least, when it comes to the upright, there was a great analogy, and again, I wish I could remember the name of the person who wrote it. I think it was a self-help article, but when it comes to, with this much water, and if this is related, if your Two of Swords is related to something relationship based, I remember hearing a great analogy. I think it was by a relationship coach who talked about how, how sometimes when you get hurt once, you get this dogged mantra in your head. Well, I'm never going to let anybody hurt me again. I'm just going to, I'm going to block everything out. And remember in the beginning when we said nothing gets in and nothing gets out, right? She has her wrists over at the center of her heart. It's like the shield. It's like a human shield over her heart. Um, the relationship coach described it a really wonderful way, where he said, imagine your heart as being this really beautiful little cottage of a house. um with whatever relationship hurt you, you had your door wide open and it was inviting, and someone came in and damaged your trust, right? And then maybe after that offense, you said, okay, let me lock the door, shut the door, border up all the windows. Let me build a really big fence around that house. That way no one can ever hurt me again. But the problem with that is, yes, that will keep you safe, but nothing gets in and nothing gets out. So the good people that are out in the world cannot get in through that wall that you built, right? And the other thing is, you can't give love. You can't exercise these waters, right? You can't give love out when you've got a wall. And honestly, unfortunately, the wall is not fail safe either. Usually someone might get in, and usually it's the people who know how to scale walls. And the ones who know how to scale walls usually have no better intent than the other people who have hurt you in the past. But one way that you can do is, instead of having a tall wall that no one can get through, why don't you have a gate? Have a human-sized wall with a gate, and then keep your door open and be baking some banana bread or something. Make it appealing, but make it where there is a gate there, that you get to open, right? Not a towering wall that, some shady guy could scale, right? make it a gate that you can control, right? And that would kind of give the balance between that water and your mind, right? But again, most of the time it is about having a dilemma, being in the, in the throes of a dilemma, or being afraid to open up your emotions or deal with what you're feeling. Sometimes it can be analysis paralysis too. Sometimes it can be you being immobilized by a decision, like you can't decide, you don't want to decide. Sometimes if you see this next to the 3, and I was kind of taken aback because the 3 is underneath the middle deck, but sometimes if you see the 2 right next to the 3, because it's a progression, sometimes that can mean that you really do, that you might have to make a choice between 2 people and someone's going to end up getting hurt, right? But you prolonging the decision is just churning you up, right? It's not taking you any farther. And then, lastly, when it comes to situations, it just means you being kind of passive, You can't bury your head in the sand, you can't hold out forever. That's an uncomfortable position. It might keep you safe, but it's not, those emotions are coming, rolling in through the door. So you really have to make the decision. What do you want? What do you feel, right? Mind is all good and well, but you know, if you're healing, take enough time to heal, but don't suppress those emotions too much. Now, when it's represented by people, so if this is describing a person, someone, it can be someone that you are in a stalemate with. Someone, if this is next to a real stubborn card, like if it's next to the Emperor in reverse, it could be someone who's doggedly determined. Like you can tell that under the surface they're upset and they need to do something, but they're refusing to make a choice. And then lastly, when you see this related to people, sometimes it can be 2 feuding people. Like maybe if you have friends that are in a disagreement and they're fighting, or family members who are fighting, you can tell, okay, this is going to be an uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner because, Uncle Joe and my dad are not talking, right? You're going to see the 2 of Swords, which is a lot of, emotional subtext and no talking, right? So now when it comes to the 2 in reverse, let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. The 2 in reverse is actually a pretty good card. The first, when you see a reversal, it usually either means that you're coming out of the energy or the energy is blocked. So in the good expression, it's actually really good. And I'll actually refer to, with the vice versa tarot, the back of the card is the reversal, and the reversal you see the water's all calm, right? And you see her looking up at the full moon. Oh wow, look at that, guys! Because we talked about how a lot of times, it's the waxing, it's after the new moon, right? And then there you go. You're coming to the completion of the cycle, right? You're coming to the completion, which, so the first meaning usually means that you finally did make the decision. The stalemate is over, right? Maybe someone finally caved, and caving is not a bad thing. Remember we said peacemaking, right? Peacemaking. Maybe you did finally, come out and talk about what you were feeling. Either that, or maybe you're just feeling better. Maybe you're kind of out of that danger zone. Because again, this moon is a few days after the new moon, and then you look at the full moon. So maybe a good 10 days have gone by, and you're far enough away from, the drama to start feeling for the tide to ebb a little bit. And the irony is that usually on a full moon, the moon pulls on the tide. So usually an ocean is a lot more, churning when the moon is full because it's pulling on it. But, there you see a calm ocean. But a lot of times it can be that you just having faith in your, maybe you did finally, make a decision and you're feeling good in that decision. Sometimes it can be the early consequences of a choice. Like maybe you did finally make that choice, and now, okay, if it was going to upset somebody, or if it was going to cause some drama, oh gosh, well, now I'm living with it. I'm living with the fallout. Now the other things, it can be facing your feelings. Maybe you did just have a good cry, or maybe you did sit down and write down, what you were feeling, or kind of exercise those churning emotions. maybe you finally dealt with the water that's coming into your foyer, you know. The other thing is that in the more negative sense, the two in the reverse can mean that the emotions are finally bursting through, which is kind of the more negative. Again, the repression couldn't hold. You couldn't dam up the emotions, and they finally came flooding in, right? Which can also be the full moon. It can be, people always they talk about how you act crazy on a full moon, you know. The other thing is that um, maybe the other extreme with the two is that a lot of times with it being like a stalemate, a lot of times it does mean not talking to someone. So the two in the reverse can be the extreme of it, where maybe you kind of were blocking someone and then you really haven't talked to them for more time, and it's really really starting to bother you, right? Like, okay, it's almost like pressure is building even more, like what's, you know, so it's coming to an apex where it has to be dealt with, right? And then if you see the two in the reverse and that kind of, and you're feeling that extreme emotions, I would immediately look to the card that's to the right, because that would be the outcome. Almost like a volcano erupting, right? Or a tsunami coming through. It's like, okay, you know but a lot of times it does usually mean that the standoff is over, right? There's been a break in communication finally. You've given up this apex. The other thing that I always kind of think of too is, just like the two in the upright kind of means keeping yourself distracted to the point, a lot of times I see the two in reverse as being just flat out exhaustion. Like, okay, I've crocheted 20 beanies. I've I cleaned my car. I went out and blew leaves with the leaf blower. It's like your house is clean, your car is clean. You've crafted up a storm, and then you just fall down and then you fall down crying because there's no other distraction, right? You've broken through the distraction barrier. And so the tension has been broken, right? The mental block is finally ended. And the last thing that I kind of see with this, especially with the two in reverse, with her wearing what looks like a simple, almost like wedding gown, it's almost like an acknowledgement of the ugly, right? You're acknowledging, you finally taken the blinder off and are seeing the situation for what it is, right? For what it is. But when it comes to people, or when it comes to situations, a lot of times I do see this, the two in reverse, as being like, oh, okay. It's almost like that little nugget. It's like that little nugget of breakthrough communication. Maybe you did have two family members who were fighting, and one person was, maybe you're at Thanksgiving dinner, and again, your two family members have been feuding, and they finally someone says, pass the salt, and someone does it, and then they're like, thank you. And you're like, poof, standoff over, crisis averted, it's kind of like that. It's almost like that little tink of a beginning, or, in its extreme, if you actually see the two in reverse next to a more positive card, maybe a more cathartic card, maybe like the Six of Swords, it could be that two people actually did hash it out. Someone actually had a straight from the heart conversation, and things are no longer on that verbal kind of cold, walled off kind of keel. But most of the time in the upright, it is a good card. It's not a bad card. It's talking about, are you keeping yourself distracted? What's underneath? What's in those churning waters? What you got to look at them. Let's look at them now, so this doesn't go on forever, right? But that makes it, that definitely makes the Two of Swords pretty amazing. But let's go ahead, and so that concludes the how-to part. So let's go ahead and get started with the second part of your reading. We have 3 decks here. After you choose your deck, we will go ahead and see how the Two of Swords manifests in your life. So this could be a current energy, or it could be energy that has led up to this moment and how it's manifesting for you. We have 3 decks, and what I'm going to do is I am going to clarify your read with the Quantum Oracle by Sandra and Sandra and Taylor. Also, all the names and authors are in the description box. The first deck is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck by A.G. Mueller Company. With it, we have a beautiful sunstone. Second deck is the Vice Versa Tarot. And just to let you know, there's no formal card back. The back of this deck is the reversal of the card, so there's images on both sides. And paired with it, this is by Lo Scarabo. And paired with it, we have a beautiful Dalmatian Jasper. The last deck is the Anna K Tarot, and with it we have a beautiful Smoky Quartz. If you like the artwork, if you like the timestamp, or maybe the numerology, please, kind of choose from your gut instinct. Listen to your water, not your swords. No, or listen to your swords, whatever is pulling at you. And if you need more time, please pause the video, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. I'm going to go ahead and move up the other decks here. Just as a disclaimer, the How to Tarots do run a little bit longer, but again, the timestamps are always below, so if you want to skip over the intro or anything else, please do so. So, first deck, Rider-Waite-Smith. How does the Two of Swords manifest in your life? Ooh, that was quick. Wow, guys. Holy Toledo. 2 major arcanas. Dang. Wow. Oh my gosh. Can I just tell you, that's some serious beautiful. Wow. The third card's not a major, but darn if it isn't good. So the Quantum Oracle is a really beautiful deck. It gives like energies. So we're going to go ahead and go with this as a clarifier. So what is your oracle? Okay, you see this here? You see how that's sticking out? I'm going to take that as your card. And there is actually 2 cards together, so we're just going to take both, okay? And this is really amazing. Oh my goodness. Synchronicities, guys. Synchronicities. So, wow, guys. I am definitely seeing that your Two of Swords is you. This is, I'm almost getting more of an interpretation, just like we talked about in the how-to part. I'm really almost getting this as you protecting yourself. It's almost like your Two of Swords is really about you. In the past, you have gone through a major transformation, right? In the past, you got death. And we've had a tarot on death. If you ever get a chance to watch that video, it puts it into a lot of perspective, because it doesn't, death doesn't necessarily mean that you've lost anybody like in a physical sense. It could be that. But a lot of times it just means transformation. Death is the natural progression of one phase or element of your life, passing away, going through the natural progression of dying, so that you can be renewed, right? It is meant, the death card is depicted a lot by like butterfly transformation. This could be the passing of someone that was close to you, that really impacted your life, that really affected you. But in the recent past, you definitely had some kind of metamorphosis happen. And that could be either through like a physical loss, or just you going through a stage in your life. So sometimes it can be something like divorce, sometimes it can be, you losing someone. But I do see that in the recent past, you have had a lot of loss, and from that loss, it has sparked a lot of transformation for you. It's almost like you remade yourself, right? Whatever left your life, the memories and the feelings. The other thing is the feelings of this. One vibe that I do kind of get, and we describe this in the how-to part, is that sometimes it's you not wanting to face your feelings because you feel like the feelings would be too much. And I definitely, I understand this quite well, because I got into tarot because I had gone through a period where I had lost so many people. I lost 3 family members who were very close to me in the course of a year and a half. And one of them was one of my parents. So it's like, I completely empathize and understand that. The other thing is that we talked a lot about that moon that's in the sky. It's a waxing crescent moon, which means that it's like 3 days after the new moon. And what that kind of tells me is that, it's almost like it was almost like you were just fresh into this new cycle, right? You had something really impacting. You had something really kind of hit you, and you're fresh into your new cycle, right? The other thing that you kind of see is that in the death card, you do see a sun in the distance, and you don't know if it's setting or if it's rising. But here, I'm getting a sense that it's kind of rising for you, or that sun has set on one way of life, and then it's rising again in your present. So, but I do see that these two major arcanas are very powerful energy. It's almost like, again, it's like major life cycles. So you have gone through a lot of loss, and that loss has been the catalyst of a lot of change for you. And I see that the Two of Swords is just your way of coping, right? There's again, the two can be in a very positive sense, in the fact that you're keeping a mental rein on your emotions, because when you're going through this much transformation, you need to pace yourself, right? There are times that you can't deal with the grieving of everything, or the you can't rush the progression of it. It's a natural progression. And if you want to kind of, you think about the way trauma affects you. There's a lot of people who block out bad times in their life because it was traumatic. It's almost kind of like that for you. It isn't that you're not dealing with what your transformation, but it's almost like a floodgate. It's like you have to keep your mind in check in order to go through the steps of this metamorphosis in your way, and for you to mentally assimilate to the changes. That's the vibe I'm kind of getting here. Now, your current energy is really beautiful. I really do. I'm getting a strong the the sentence, the saying. I see the sun setting on one way of life for you, and you presently it's rising again as the sun. A new day has dawned for you, and it's a happy one, right? A new day has dawned for you, and it's a happy one. Um, and the sun is the happiest card in the deck. And I know it's such a conflicting energy, because when you see death and you see this, I think um, presently, um, one thing that this might be kind of telling us is that presently you are ready for a new cycle. You're already a few steps into a new cycle. One thing this is kind of telling me is that you might be avoiding your new cycle. You might still be lingering in feelings of loss. Because the other thing about churning emotions is that stirred up emotions can be happy ones too, right? When, you think about the waves when you're surfing at the beach, right? And you look at this little kid, he almost looks like he's on a surfboard, right? The arms out, right? But I'm kind of thinking that. I am getting kind of two messages on this. I do think that you in the and I'm getting a sense in the last couple of years too. I'm not even getting like the last couple months. You've been through a lot of loss, but you've gone through the phase, right? You've gone through the phase. Um, and with it being a two, I think it's really the universe asking you to take the blinders off and to see the good, like to see where you're going, because where you're going is really bright. I'm hearing, your future's so bright you got to wear shades. I do think that it is almost like one of those phases where you had a hard, you had a period of a lot of loss, but that loss is going to really blossom into a really strong, new, happy time for you. But it's almost like you're refusing I am almost getting the feeling like you might be staying a little bit in the past. You might be clinging to this loss a little bit. um, and here it's telling you that if you take the blind, put the swords down, and look at your future now, you're going to be really excited about it. And this is happening now. The other thing that I get is, again, I keep seeing that moon phase. It's almost like the sun is set, The moon has come out. You're in a new phase. You're starting a new phase. And when that sun comes up, you have everything to be excited about. It's almost going to be like really, really great. So I do think that it might be telling you to kind of face these emotions, kind of do the other thing that you might be doing is you might feel like if you look at your emotions, if you finally complete, the other thing is death is a completion. If you do finally let go of that grief, if you finally say, okay, I have grieved, I'm letting this go, right? You're putting the two swords down, you know? I'm not going to stay in that uncomfortable position anymore. I am almost getting a sense like you might be a little afraid to be happy. Not in a bad way. I know that sounds so silly, but I've definitely been there. Sometimes when you get afraid of what the future might bring, either that or if you're afraid of letting go of the past. You feel like, okay, well the past was so good, or the past had value to me. If I do finally leave it in the past, you know, um, but that's the other thing about this child that I'm kind of seeing. It's almost like a new, being happy like a child, you know, being innocent and trusting, you know. The other thing that I really get is that it would give you a strong sense of self. You know, like I think you would not only be happy, but you would be really being yourself. You wouldn't be holding on to anything that isn't you, right? That doesn't serve you. And I'm sorry, I know readers throw out that phrase all the time, and it's not a bad phrase. I'm not knocking it. It becomes a little cliche, and it's like, let go of anything that's serving you. And you're like, yes, that is great in words. And I'm a reader, so I'm allowed to say it. It is great in words. But in action, you know, when you're asking someone to let go of a part of your life that really meant a lot to you, it's scary. It's scary. It's not easy. You know, it's easy for other people to say because they're not feeling what you're feeling. They don't have those churning waves. They don't know what's under the surface, you know. So, but that's where I empathize. You know, you're on your way. You're on your way, and I think this is also the universe's way of saying you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot, and you have every reason to be guarded, right? But it is really encouraging you to just kind of put the swords down, you know, to break the impasse, right? Break the stalemate, and to take the blinders off and to see how much good is coming your way, like how wonderful it's going to be. It's going to be exciting. I do think that you do have to let that sun set a little bit, but you're on your way. You're 3 days into your new moon, right? So it's okay. It's gonna be okay to face that, right? To face it, to take the blinder off. And now your future, wow, guys, remember how I said your future's so bright you gotta wear shades? I'm seeing a lot of, this is the Nine of Pentacles, and gosh, guys, you're gonna be independent. Look at this woman. Look at how nicely dressed. Doesn't look like the same woman, except she put her knife set down, and 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 look at that, guys. Look at how natural a scene that is. You're gonna take the shift dress off, and you're gonna be putting on some golden robes. And the other thing that strikes me about this is that the Nine of Pentacles, we had a tarot on it not too long. The hawk that she's holding is a trained hawk. It means that you're in control of your base desires. And what that tells me is that you did take the blindfold off. Your future, you're going to be well off. You're going to be okay. You're going to be better than okay. You're going to have more than enough. And you're going to be a really well-dressed, independent woman or person, man or female. I also see a lot of nature around you, so I think you're going to be, you see how much sunlight is in the background? This change is really going to project you into a really happy future, and you're going to be okay. The other thing is that maybe some of these fears might have been financial. Maybe you felt like you couldn't support yourself or something. Maybe if this was, I'm not getting too much relationship with this, but if that was in the mix a little bit, maybe you had fears about going it alone. And this is telling you, don't worry about that, honey. You're going to be fine. And you're going to be surrounded by a lot of nature. But that falcon is, it means being tamed in a good way. It means owning your strength. And you owned your strength because you faced you faced your true self. Like, you were self-possessed is what it's telling you. And I think that comes from you embracing, I'm also getting a lot of creative manifestation with this, like knowing that you deserve, right? Knowing you deserve this because you have been through a lot of loss. Now, your 2 oracle cards, this is what blew my mind, guys. Okay, first off, you got transformation and you got the number 5, and you see how it says cycle? Wow, guys. First off, the number 5 is change. Focus, please. Thank you. First off, the number 5 is change. And then that cycle, remember we talked about the cycle of the moons and the cycle of the sun? But you got transformation. And transformation is death. That's a definition of death, right? And look at this, guys. You see a bridge, and you see how she has crossed the bridge, right? And you see how this was real dark in the background, and now she's coming towards the light. Guys, hello, guys. You're crossing the bridge. And can I just say, look at her outfit. Hello, oh my gosh. Synchronicity alert. Sorry, I'm getting excited for you. Your future's so bright you gotta wear shades. You have crossed the bridge, guys. And honestly, I really feel like the universe, not to sound cheesy, but you remember that scene in The Wizard of Oz when she's afraid to come out of the house and everything's in Technicolor? I'm kind of getting that. I feel like the universe is excited for you. I feel like the universe is telling you the worst is over. The worst is over. Just, look around. Look around, because you're going to cross that bridge. That really blows my mind, guys. Look at that. You're crossing the bridge. And now the other card that came out, this is what it flipped to, and it said, this is also a number 5. Oh my gosh. There are different numbers. There's one number. Wow. That's crazy, guys. You got 2 5s. I'm sorry. I'm just really happy for you. Can I be happy for you? This is cool. 5 is change. And it's change too. It's always uncomfortable. But the other thing is she went from the 8 to the 9. And this is 14? But wow, guys. Oh, wow. That's so exciting. But you got travel. You got travel. So I really get the sense, the funny thing is that, have you ever had really, really challenging moments in your life, and you're like, once you finally get past the tough part, you're like, okay, let me put my swords down, let me get some good clothes on, and I'm going somewhere. I'm going bucket list, honey. The bucket list. I really get the sense that you're going places. You're going places. I think that not only means going places, but I do think, and again, we're still, we're still in pandemic world, but I do think that things are starting to get more balanced now. Maybe this is coming out of that too. Maybe this is playing into your change, but you got 2 5s. Yeah, you're completing a cycle, guys. And it's been uncomfortable. The other thing about 5s is that it's a tipping point, right? Things are starting towards the better, like way better. But it is change. It's change. And it's funny, no one likes change. Change is always uncomfortable. But it's so telling you that the universe wants you to take that blindfold off and look, guys, God, the sun, you're walking across the bridge. So wow, guys, I think that was, I don't know what the other reads are going to be about, but I think that is pretty darn amazing, and I'm so happy for you. So that's an awesome read. All right, so moving on, deck number 2, we got the Vice Versa Tarot and the Dalmatian Jasper. I'm just going to shuffle real quick. During the how-to part, we saw the 3 was, and the 3's still on top, was poking out. It's not a bad thing. Actually, when the 2 is next to the 3, it's actually kind of a good thing. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to keep shuffling here. So deck number 2, how does the 2 of Swords manifest in your life? Okay, I'll go with the first card. Current energy. Please clarify the Fool in reverse. And then Okay, please clarify the devil in reverse. Wow, you guys have some very powerful energy here. And just for the record, you've got 4 major arcana. You got 4 major arcana, and you got temperance on the top of the deck. That's very strong, guys. The other thing is this is pile 2, and it's the 2 of swords. So I don't know if 2 is a number. I always, it's funny when I read readings from other readers, I like to go with the second pile. I do pick a deck with you after we do these reads, and I don't always go with the second deck. That's ironic. Sometimes with my own readings, I'll pick whatever is. Yeah, that's interesting. Sorry, not to lament. Let's go ahead and get your oracle cards. We're going with the Quantum Oracle by Sandra and Taylor. I was drawn to use this deck, and it's the first deck, the first read. Really, I'm glad I went with this. So, what is your Quantum Oracle card? Deck number 2. Wow. Wow. This is amazing too, because the first read also got an event card. Because what it is this this deck has several. There's different themes to it. There's cycles, energies, events, and this is I'm blown away because this is really kind of cool. Now, wow, guys, in the past you got the 3 of Cups, and you got the 3 of Cups in the upright. Now, all of my videos are marked as being for adults, so there's not so much naked bits, but there's nudie bits. So, but we should be all adults here, so it should be no big. But the 3 of Cups is that that traditional card of friendship, right? It usually means it means quite a lot of things. It usually means some kind of celebration, but in this spread, I'm really getting a sense. Wow. I'll be honest, guys, I'm getting a little bit of a lifestyle vibe with this deck. I think in the past that you might have kept things real casual. And I'm not really seeing this as being like person to person. Like, I don't think that, I'm not seeing this as being you and like a permanent other person. But what I'm kind of seeing is I'm seeing in the past that it looks like, I really get a sense that you might have been kind of a free agent, and you can be kind of a man or a woman in this energy. Because we kind of got water here. We have water in the 2 of Cups, and I take the imagery really into consideration. And definitely, if you watch the how-to part, you see there's this really beautiful artwork, but you see the red and blue swords, almost like they're charged, like lightsabers or something. You could actually, I could even think of it that way. I didn't even think of it that way, like good and evil. But you've got lightning bolts and really churned up emotions here, right? But I think I am. Wow, the fact that I noticed that with the red, because before red and blue can traditionally mean divine masculine, divine, like it's almost like your head and heart, ego and emotions are not in check. And what I'm kind of getting is in the past, I think you put a high value, like when you look at this, you see how there's 2 splashing cups there and then one person holding it up. The cups is really a celebration card, but with this imagery, I feel like you almost put your own cup ahead of everything else, right? And splashing water means a lot of emotion, right? And the 3 of Cups can mean, the 3 of Cups is usually a very happy card, but it can also mean dynamics like triangles, like emotional triangles, right? So what I'm kind of seeing here is that if you're, I'll just put it out there, if you're a man watching this reading, you might have had a choice between a few different hearts, but one in particular was really offering up their cup to you, right? And in that same sense, without looking at the imagery, the Three of Cups can be a little bit of a partying card. Like it's like being a free agent. It's like, okay, you keep things casual, right? You don't get real serious with your heart. You like to keep things on a friendship level, or maybe you don't like labels on things. So in your past, I kind of read that one of two ways. You either prioritized your heart, like you didn't, it wasn't that you were undermining anybody else intentionally, but it was more like, I'm gonna put my cup first, right? I'm gonna prioritize my cup. So if you're a woman watching this could very well be you, right? Maybe you've broken a few hearts in your time. But I am getting kind of a strong vibe that the reason that that kind of heartbreak occurred is because maybe you were, I feel, I get a real social vibe, like almost like I am also getting, maybe hanging out drinking, but in a casual way, not in an extreme way, but you going out to eat, or hanging out with friends and then meeting other guys or girls through your friendships. It's almost like, but you've always prioritized your cup, like almost like reverently, your emotions came first. The other thing is that with the night sky, a lot of times, anytime I see stars on a dark background, I think of texting, or I think of social media. So maybe you did have some dalliances that were social media based, but it was all casual. I do think that you kept it very clear that you were not taken, like that you didn't intend to be in anything exclusive. But I do think that, the other thing is that you see pomegranates. Are those apples? Those might be apples. They look like pomegranates to me. But you've got grapes at the feet here. And let me go ahead and look at the back of the card and see if it gives me... No, might be apples. But I do just kind of see that that with the splashing of the cups, I mean, definitely, I'm getting a sense like you've probably had a few relationships, or you might have again just had some casual friendships where somebody, there might have been offers to take it kind of further, to kind of go to the next level, but you either prioritized your own feelings, or honestly, if you're a man, it's interesting. In last week's weekly energy card reading, I think it was deck 3 that got the... What throws me is, in deck 3 there was one card that had a brunette and a redhead, and then the second card was a blonde, and the back of this card you have a brunette, a redhead, and a blonde. So if you picked deck 3 last week and you're picking this deck now for your how does this manifest in your life, this might be a shout out for you. But I said in that reading, natural blondes, like the reason that the hair color industry makes as much bank as it does is because only 3% of the populace is born natural blonde, right? It's a rare hair color, more rare than red actually. Um, but I think red is the second runner up. But it also makes you look youthful, though, because a lot of people have blonde hair in their youth, and then as they age, it changes. But what I'm kind of seeing is that if you are a man watching this, or a woman, it could be a blonde man, um, you might have had someone who was a very rare bird. That's what I'm hearing. You might have had someone who was a natural blonde, like, or not. They don't necessarily have to be blonde, but someone who was rare, like they were the real 3%, offer you a cup, but it would mean giving up, or offsetting your lifestyle, right? It would mean not being casual anymore. Um, Either that, or maybe you did have options, as you were, I don't think this is a playing the field. I really get the sense that you were just going about your life and being yourself, but you were attracting a lot of people. And I do see a lot of texting, a lot of connecting through social media. But I do think that you had in the past. I'm getting the sense that someone offered you their cup, and you didn't take it, Either that, or you might have had a few situations where things started out and you wanted to remain a free agent, so you really splashed around a few cups. You might have spilled a few cups, and there might have been one person that you really felt connected to, um, but you maintained that lifestyle, because that lifestyle gave you what you wanted, right? You prioritized your cup. You didn't want to be exclusive. Now, the current energy that I see here is that, again, the stalemate of the situation is almost like you're fighting yourself. I'm getting a lot of internal conflict. And what I thought was amazing, guys, is you got two major arcanas. First off, you got the Fool, but you got the Fool in reverse. So you see the Fool in reverse, and you see the dog at his feet. It's almost like you see like a wish in the distance, and you see that it almost looks like the same night sky. Um, what I'm kind of getting is that I think you're afraid to take the leap. The other thing that I see is that there's a cup that's spilled at the end. There's a cup that's turned over there. And you know what that tells me, guys, is that I'm really getting a sense. It's almost like, are are you contemplating, you know, being exclusive to someone? Like you're willing to put this, either is that someone really rare, someone that I'm hearing irreplaceable. Like maybe in you dating, you came across somebody who was really good, that you connected with, that you probably really loved, but then you said, nah, I'm gonna keep dating, right? And you didn't take the cup, right? You didn't take the cup. It's almost like the cup is what's spilled at your feet, right? You didn't take the cup. So, and now you're looking back and going, gosh, no one else is like this person, right? Again, with the blonde, it's like, okay, she was rare, or he was rare. And now you're thinking about, stepping off the cliff, right? The fool in the reverse is being a literal fool, right? It can be a literal fool, like you did something foolish, right? And I'm seeing a turned over cup there. It's almost like that cup is at your feet and this person is no longer around you. And the other thing is that the flower is a sign of innocence, and you see it shedding. It's almost like you don't have the guise of being innocent anymore, right? The other thing that I'm kind of getting is that you're contemplating, you're really torn up about this. Right. I think you're afraid of change. You're afraid of change. You're afraid of leaving some kind of lifestyle. But it's like following that shooting star. The other thing is that I get the sense that you feel like, a lot of times with the Fool, it's stepping off the cliff and knowing that the universe is going to catch you. And the thing is, I just looked at the time clock a minute ago, and it was 1:22:22 seconds. So, um, but I, um, that's a choice. It's a choice. Twos are choices, right? I think you're really torn. You're afraid to leave your lifestyle, and I think you feel like you were a fool for not taking some kind of emotional opportunity when you had the chance. The other thing is, underneath the Fool in reverse, you got the High Priestess, and she is the number 2. And guess what she rules, guys? She rules your intuition. All of those motions under the surface, what you're ignoring. I think you are ignoring your intuition. Your intuition is telling you to step off the cliff, and you're not doing it because you think that you're going to lose your lifestyle, you're going to lose your freedom. That's the other thing, is that Fool is freedom. You're afraid you're going to lose your freedom. And there's nothing wrong with that, because definitely, I know that The other thing that I'm kind of getting is that I feel like you know that these changes are coming anyway, because you know how we talked about, there's no sense in ignoring. We talked in the how-to part at the beginning of the video. Those waves are not going anywhere. You putting a blindfold on is not making your emotions go away. The other thing is I'm getting that it's almost churning you up worse. Um, but what I see is that the high priestess talks about leaning back. She understands, she's the guardian of the veil, and the thing is, the veil is, you see stars in the background. The guardian of the veil is, um, oh my gosh! And when you look at the back of the high priestess, she's got blue and red flames, guys. You're ignoring your gut instinct. Your gut instinct is telling you. Now, I am kind of reading this two ways. Your gut instinct either could be telling you to hold back, because the high priestess refrains from taking action, and the fool is the fool is the person who's about to step off the cliff. So I can kind of, you please comment if this is resonating. I'd really like to know, but that might be part of the duality of it too. There's a lot of duality here, guys. The high priestess is between two pillars, dark and light. You've got the blue and red flame. It's one of two things. You're really either gung ho to make this choice, and your gut instinct is telling you that it's a poor choice, don't do it. Um, and you might be fighting that, like, okay, you might really want to go for it, but you don't know what to do, and that's what's making you churn. The other way I read it is that you might have missed an opportunity because you did not change your lifestyle. You were kind of acting the fool. And now your instinct, it's almost like you're staying with the same foolish lifestyle. You're refusing to change. You're not going back to that person and saying, "Yes, here, let's try." You're staying where you're at, and you're ignoring your intuition, and it's making you the fool. But I am kind of getting, because you see that wish in the distance, you know, I'm getting a strong sense, and it's the same night sky that's behind here. Um, but really, that could have either interpretation. So you can take it as it resonates, but you've either you've either made a poor decision in the past, and you're staying in the foolish behavior, and you're ignoring your intuition. Your intuition's telling you to change. Either that, or hi guys. So I had a total mess up where I knew that my microphone was not fully charged, and I proceeded to film a very long how to tarot without looking at the microphone to make sure that it was still on and working. So I royally goofed, and it ended up cutting out in the middle of the second reading. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be my first over voiceover because I do still have all of the video footage, and all three readings were really good, so I don't want to have to, pull new cards or try to redo it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to look at the cards, and I'm going to do a voiceover for the remaining of the video. I hope everything sounds okay. It's the first time I'm doing this, so I'm learning something new. I just hope it doesn't sound like a wildlife documentary. Behold the Two of Swords in its native habitat. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But I appreciate your patience. I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of the cards, and thank you for bearing with me. I'll see you back in a minute. Or with the cup being kind of turned over, and the dog meaning loyalty, it could mean that you really walked away. There was something else in the horizon, something else in the horizon that was drawing you, like the shooting star. There was something else that you wanted, right? Something else that was calling to you. But again, with it being the Fool in reverse, the Fool in reverse is, being acting foolish and not listening. The Two of Swords has the blue and the red flames, so those two are like a balance. It's like something that is, calling to you. And I really get the sense that, if the blue and the red flame is with the high priestess, and the blue and the red flame are the swords, it's the thoughts that are anchoring you. What might be happening is that there might be something from your past. The water is the churning water at your feet, but the blue and the red flame is is your mental thoughts, and you're reining in your emotions with those mental thoughts. So this really is, honestly, when I look at it, guys, it is, it's one of those things where you could very well have, I'm getting a duality here with this read, where you could either, you know, it's the outcome is really contingent upon the decision that you make. The fool is jumping off the cliff and expecting your to be caught, right? The universe to catch you, but it's the fool in reverse. So, you could be really, pulled back to something that was a past situation. But I am seeing a strong sense of this previous lifestyle. There's something there that's, you're kind of anchored to the past by something that happened in your past. And then your high priestess, your inner knowing, and the high priestess really, she understands what's going on below the surface, right? She understands what's going on below those waves. Now, as you go forward, you've got the devil, but you've got the devil in the upright, and then the devil in the reverse. You got the devil in the reverse. And what that is that's either a suppression of the energy or a negative manifestation. The root, you've got the Hierophant. And the Hierophant is a very spiritual card. Both the High Priestess and the Hierophant are the two most spiritual cards that you have. And what we're kind of seeing here is that there's a duality with the Hierophant and the devil. The devil gets a real bad reputation because of the imagery. We've had a tarot on it, so if you ever want to watch that, it's really not as scary as it seems. And when the devil's in the reverse, it's actually usually a pretty good card. What you see is you kind of see a lotus flower in this depiction. You see candles, and you actually see a lot of spiritual imagery. You see the burning bush, and you see the tree from like the Garden of Eden, right? And underneath that you have the Hierophant, which is almost a priest-like figure. It's very spiritual. So when I look at two cards, one right under the other, I kind of think of a root and a bloom. So the manifestation is the devil in reverse, and the root of it is the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant really talks about the status quo. It's about like it's a little bit of following the crowd, but the one thing that it is about it. It's about following. It is about almost kind of like having a mentor, right? And there's a counterbalance here, because you've got the Hierophant and you've got the devil. Those are two opposites. The high priestess and the Hierophant are two opposites. But what it is it's almost like with the blue sword and the red sword. And again, I was very surprised that I kind of got lightsabers out of that, because it's like the force and the dark side, right? That's really what you're talking about when you look at those kind of parallels. It's almost like you wanting to do the right thing. It's wanting to do the right thing, but wanting to know what the right thing is, right? Now, with the Hierophant, it really could be someone that's leading you. So sometimes it can, um, it's the expression of, following the crowd that might be expressing itself in this devil reversed. So what it could be is that it could quite honestly be that you're kind of exercising this past energy. Maybe you were a little bit more of a free agent. Maybe you cared more of what people thought than what you actually want, which is mind, what will they say, swords versus what do you feel? But a lot of times, when you see the Hierophant, it really is, maybe you are seeking out some kind of spiritual counsel. that doesn't necessarily have to be religious based. Maybe it's a mentor in your family. Maybe it's someone that you respect, someone whose beliefs you respect. But maybe it really is. Maybe you are seeking out the spiritual guidance from a pastor or someone that can kind of guide you. But what it is it's almost like a break between your two lives. In the past, you really kind of had a priority of putting yourself, or putting, um, honestly, to throw it out there, it could very well be keeping up with the crowd, because sometimes the Hierophant is the status quo, and the expression of it can be the devil, because what you're doing is you feel almost stuck. Sometimes if you were raised a certain way to say, maybe, this is how you behave, this is what you do. The other thing that I kind of see with this energy, and not to, you can be a man or a woman in this energy, but sometimes it can literally be you wanting to keep in good status with your friends, or your image of you, right? And sometimes that isn't really what you want, or per the morals in your soul, right? So it's almost like you're trying to break free of that. And now, one thing is, these two cards, the High Priestess and the Hierophant, are the two most religious cards in all of the 78 tarot. And you got both of them. You got both of them. So what I'm seeing is there's a lot of spiritual influence here. The devil in reverse is, the devil in the upright is being obligated. It's being held down by something. The devil in reverse can be the release, the letting go, or the being free of that. The other manifestation that we have to take into consideration is sometimes it can be the devil in an extreme, where you're not letting go of what's keeping you stuck, right? You're holding on to either a status quo, or impressing others, or being the man, being the woman, being the free agent. So, but one thing that's very, very clear is that those two swords, with the burning bush, the other thing is, and with the Guardian of Eden, there's a lot of parallels. The blue is the divine feminine, the red is the divine masculine. That's what those two flames mean. And you have Adam and Eve and the devil. Yeah, and you see it, the tree from the Garden of Eden, and that's Eve next to the tree. So you might feel like this person from the past might have been a divine counterpart. Either that, or you're just wrangling with the thoughts of either, a forbidden destiny, or you're really fighting with what is the right thing to do in the situation. And there's such a duality here, guys, because it's really amazing. The High Priestess is very new age. She's very, kind of meditation and higher learning. And then Hierophant is very more structured in kind of a Christian sense. So you have those two cards in your reading. So I'm really getting a sense that you kind of have a choice. You have a choice. If you continue on the fool's path in reverse, you might be making the wrong choice, and your high priestess might be calling out to you. The other thing is, your Hierophant could actually be a real world spiritual leader, or it could be you falling into the patterns of what you know, right? You conceding to the status quo. But in the positive sense, it could also be you exercising these demons. Maybe you really are getting over some kind of past behavior, some kind of mentality. But I think the devil in reverse is really almost like the lovers in a negative, where you have a really, really, really hard decision. You see this, you've got, you've kind of got a really, really tough choice. It's an emotional choice. Those emotions that you're holding back, they don't stay caged, right? That's the other thing about the devil in reverse. You don't want to keep that energy caged. You have to turn and face it, which is the meaning of the Two of Swords. You really kind of have to decide what's going on underneath those waves, right? You have to decide whether or not it's related to your past, because those two swords have the red and the blue. The other thing is, there's two keys here. So I'm really getting a sense there's two solutions here. This reading was completely on the fence. your future is completely contingent upon what choice you make, what sword you choose, what mental decision you go with. But that mental decision is completely contingent on how you're feeling. So it really is facing those decisions. Whether or not that devil in reverse is you releasing that feeling of feeling trapped and feeling obligated and feeling stuck. Um, if you exercise that, you can really be released from that energy. If you don't, then it's almost like making the devil worse. It's like you're even more stuck than what you were. And it really is your choice. But right now, the current energy is, you're in the Fool in reverse. It's almost like you're making a bad choice, and your instincts calling out to you. And in the future, you can either be more stuck, even more stuck than you started, or you can release the devil energy, kind of exercise it, and really figure out what it is that you want. Really figure out what it is that you want. It's almost like you got to face those fears. Because, like we said, the Two of Swords, you're not going to hold those two swords in limbo forever. Masculine and feminine. It's just, there is a lot of divine masculine and feminine in this read. And it's really, that's what's making you feel so stuck, because the two is a really powerful card. A two is a choice, right? The two is a choice. And the High Priestess really, she is a two as well, but she understands what's going on beyond the veil, what's going on beyond the surface. So as you move forward, now your oracle card you got, it's interesting. You also got a two, and you got events, which the last deck got events, and the two and the High Priestess. It's almost like major arcana, major event in your life. But here you got your card was loss, and what was really amazing is there's a lot of heat in this card. There's water and sun, which is fire and water, which we've seen throughout this whole read. But you see someone kind of holding on to the rope that's on shore, right? But it's almost like you're watching your ship sail away. You're missing the boat, right? You're afraid of missing the boat. And I think that's really tied to your Fool in reverse. It's almost like if you take one opportunity, you'd be missing out on another, right? But it's almost like you're opting out, you're opting to chase that shooting star. You're willing to drop the cup and walk away from the dog, right? In order to chase the falling star. But again, with that part being the Fool in reverse, it might not be what's really going to make you happy. And then while you're waiting, or while you're kind of fooling around, pun intended, you might be, watching your ship sail. This opportunity from the past, or this opportunity for love, could already be moving away. So I think that's what you're afraid of too, though, because the devil really rules fear. But the other thing is that the two is a stalemate. It's you not taking action. It's not you making a decision, and you're really stuck. You're almost, you don't want to be deserted on that desert island. So maybe there was some kind of opportunity that you followed with the Fool energy, but by following one thing, it's gonna cause pain for another, or missing out of something else. So I do think that maybe you've experienced loss, or something about the situation is triggering a fear of loss, because that can also be a devil concept. It's kind of like the two decisions, but I do get a strong sense of duality. The outcome of this is completely contingent upon the decision that you make, because your current energy is the Fool in reverse. It's almost like you're headed the wrong direction. You don't want to go the wrong direction, but you do want to release this devil, whatever's keeping you trapped, whatever's keeping you stuck. And I do get a sense that that's going to be some kind of religious, you know, expression. The devil in reverse has a lotus there, so that's yet another new age. So you could be dealing with some kind of loss, but definitely your path is contingent upon the decision that you make. You currently might have started a few steps down the wrong road, and your High Priestess is really calling out to you. You might want to make a different decision, and in the future, you're really gonna, you know,
see what you have to do. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that reading. That was really another really powerful one. There was a lot of duality in that. So moving on, we're going to go on to the Anna K Tarot. This is, again, a really wonderful deck. This card came out not too long ago. I think maybe it was in the weekly energy card reading, but the card came out and it was good to see. It was one thing, you know, it's got a lot of imagery in it, and I always knew that it was going to be in the How to Tarot. Just it's so expressive. It's really a wonderful card. So deck number 3, what is your energy? How does the Two of Swords manifest in your life? Okay, so we got the Seven of Wands, we got the Six of Cups. Current energy, we've got the World. And future, what's our future energy? Okay. It's quite a few cards, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. All right, so let's go ahead and get your Oracle card. If you missed the intro, this is the Quantum Oracle by Sandra and Taylor. I was really drawn to pull this deck for this reading, and it's been the first 2 decks. It really pulled some wonderful energy. So we're going to go ahead and go with the top card there. All right, so we've got some really cool energy here. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, to begin, guys, in the past, you have some really interesting energy here. I always think of, anytime I see 2 cards next to each other, I always think of kind of a root and a bloom. So the expression is the top card. And you got the Six of Cups and you got the Seven of Wands. Now, this really kind of plays into your future energy, so I'm excited for that. We'll get to that in a minute. But the Six of Cups is a very daydreamy kind of card. It talks a lot about nostalgia. And you see this woman who's on a balcony. She's almost like Juliet. She's smelling a flower and she's standing there with her cups. And she's really thinking a lot about happy memories from the past, right? From things that were really, really good in the past. So what we immediately get is that the root of your past is really good memories, right? It's something that gave you a lot of emotional happiness. And again, her waiting at the balcony is almost like, you know, it's you kind of remaining and it being in the past position. You're really standing in the past. There was something in your past that really brought you a lot of emotional happiness. And one thing I wanted to point out is that the flowers that were in the Oracle card that we got look almost identical to the Six of Cups. I just thought that was really a good, amazing thing because, you know, if you caught the beginning of the video, I pulled an Oracle card from the Gospel of the Arcadia deck that was the Two of Swords. Now, your top energy is going to really play into this card because the top energy, you got the Seven of Wands. And the Seven of Wands is really about, it's about standing your ground. It's really kind of a combative energy. It's a little bit of a juxtaposition to the Six of Cups for sure. And what it is the Seven of Cups is really about kind of like a conflict. You feel like you have to fight for the high ground, right? And when you look at the Two of Cups, the Two of Swords, what it is you've got water coming in, right? And the cups are water. Cups are a water sign. So what it is it's almost like in this Two of Cups, in this Two of Swords, you have like an ocean trying to come into your foyer, right? But you're trying not to acknowledge it, right? So what it is it's really talking about, with the past being a good memories for you, it's almost like memories of the past are kind of flooding through, right? It's really almost like you're fighting back these, because, you know, this is nostalgia, right? It's something that you really valued emotionally that came from the memories of your past. But in this context, you know, the water is something that you're trying to not recognize. It's almost like the water is kind of pulling you back. Now, the Seven of Wands is really a contrasting card, because the Seven of Wands is about standing your ground. It's a little bit about conflict, but it's about conflict about you having the high ground and someone coming at you and trying to take that ground, right? Someone fighting with you about something that you know to be right. So what I kind of see here is that, with the Two of Swords being that mind over heart, not wanting to see the truth of something, it could quite possibly be that in your past that you had some really good memories of something, but those memories are clouded or overshadowed by some really big conflicts, right? Because what it is that you can have good memories. I'm really getting kind of strong relationship vibe with this. You know how when you have relationships, sometimes you get what we call the Zoom. You love this person. When the highs are really high, the highs are really high, right? But what would happen is maybe you had some really good times, but then all of a sudden, in equal measure for those good times, you had some really tough times where somebody challenged you. Maybe someone challenged your morals, right? And it's almost like you have to remind yourself, okay, this past was not all sunshine and daisies, right? Maybe this person really did challenge you on something that was very important to you. Like, it's funny when you go on dating sites, the more expensive dating sites kind of put you through a questionnaire. And what they do is they ask you, okay, what are your core values? And that's something that you really need to connect with someone for, because your core values, the love can be wonderful, the romance can be wonderful, but if you have different religions, maybe you're different ages, maybe you just have different perspective about things. And goodness knows, no relationship's perfect, but you shouldn't feel like the Seven of Wands. Like when you get into a relationship, you can talk about your differences and work out your differences. And, it's not perfect, but you should not have to fight tooth and nail. It shouldn't be that pendulum swing of one minute you feel madly in love, smelling the roses. And then the next minute, you feel like you're fighting, right? And what that is it's almost like that water is really calling to you. But the Two of Swords parts, you have to remember what the fights were, right? You can't just remember the good side without thinking about what conflicts came from that relationship too. And it could be family related, it doesn't have to be relationship. But the other thing is that we keep talking about the moon in the sky. That's a waxing crescent moon, which means that it's just past a new moon cycle. You are a few steps away from whatever this past relationship was, right? So, this and it going from the 6 to the 7, it can really mean that, again, with the cups, those emotions really might have been really felt really good. When you think about romance and relationships, when you feel the Zoom with someone, that's dopamine straight to your head. It is a drug, right? And it can make you kind of remember the good times and want to forget any conflicts that you might have had with someone. But what you have to remember is, those emotions can be very addicting, and sometimes you do have to walk away. So the good manifestation of the Two of Swords is sometimes you're walking away for for the right reasons, right? And that you can hold on to the good memories. You can retain the good memories, but you almost have to temper that. You have to keep it in balance with what didn't work out, right? And the thing about relationships is that, those failed relationships really give you an idea of what you need moving forward, right? And you're two steps forward towards a different path. So maybe what it is that you really are being pulled to the past by these good memories. You want to stay in the good. You don't want to acknowledge the bad. But the thing is, sometimes you have to keep walking because you're already in a new phase, right? That moon in the sky is waxing, meaning that your past a new moon. You're already a few steps down the path. You can't get pulled in by the undertow. And maybe that's what you're afraid of. That's what you're afraid of. You know, sometimes when you go through breakups, the advice is that you write down all the conflict that you had with someone, you know, all the ways that they didn't, that you weren't compatible, right? And that's basically what it means, you know. I sometimes get upset at the term incompatible just because it seems like a little bit of a cop out. But the other thing is that yes, if your core values are not matching with someone, if someone's really making you fight over something you truly believe in, then that is incompatibility. And you don't have to stay in that situation. And it's almost like you have to force yourself to keep walking, right? You have to force yourself to say, I don't see the sand coming in on my foyer, you know, but you are. It's almost like you're afraid, because that was one of the meanings of the two, is you're afraid that if you admit those feelings that you'll get pulled in, that ocean will come in and sweep you away. But it's almost like you do have to remember that yes, the good times were good, but there were bad times, and you can't stick around for the bad times. It wasn't working. And walking away, you know, going down a new path is where you have to go now. And that really brings us to the present energy. So the present energy, you got amazing. You got the world. You got the world, and I love this card because it has a beautiful tree, and around the tree you have the four phases of the moon. You have new moon, you know, waxing moon, full moon, and decementing moon. So, or first quarter, you know. But what it is again, you feel like you're already currently your cycle is completing, right? The world means that you're coming to the end of a cycle, and honestly, the moon in the sky means that you're already in a new cycle. But what you're afraid of is you're being afraid of being pulled backwards, right? You know, you don't want to acknowledge that conflict because you see this person being attacked, right? And you see bruises. The other thing is you see blood and bruises, right? And that's the thing, is that no relationship should leave you bloody and bruising, you know, bloody and bruised for just standing up for what you believe in, right? So that is a good reason to walk away. That's a good reason to not stay under the rose-colored glasses of the Six of Cups, because, you know, yes, you can keep the good memories. You can keep the good memories. You don't have to let those go. But it's almost like you have to rein in, and that's the balance with your head over heart, is that you have to remember that, you know, things were not, you know, perfect all the time, and it doesn't have to be. But you know, you're in a new cycle now. Your present energy is the world. You've completed this cycle, and you're on to new things. So if someone really wants to remain in your life, they will. You know, if they're meant to, they will. That's almost part of the world as well. There's a very divine kind of cycle to it. But basically, your current energy is really beautiful. It's really telling you that you've experienced a lot of growth. That tree really talks about a lot of growth. And it does mean that you're kind of, I really get a sense like you're in a current status, like it's a homeostasis. It's almost like you're keeping yourself balanced by not, you know, trying not to remember these good memories, because you really think it'll suck you back in, right? And your card, you know, the world, you see the new moon at the roots, and then you see the first quarter on the left, and the full moon at the top, and the last quarter on the right. Um, I'm sorry, it was counterclockwise. The waxing is on the right. So it's new, first quarter, full, and then last quarter. So, and what you are is you're in your first quarter moon. The other thing that I thought was great is that, you know, on the 17th of September, if you're watching this video at the time it posts, the 17th was a new moon, and 1 week later is the first quarter. But you're right in a waxing moon, so it's almost like 3 days. It's almost right around the 20th. It's probably right around the time that this video is posting, if you're watching it at the time. Now, this energy could be your lunar cycle, right? It could be your lunar cycle, like you might be dealing, you know. The other thing is that with the peacekeeping, your your emotions are the priority, right? You don't, the other thing that it's telling you to remember is that you've kind of done the work. You know, if you need a break, if you need to walk away, and if you need to kind of be in that standoff kind of energy, you do you, right? You do what you got to do. It seems like you've already kind of fought the battles. You know, that world card is really saying that you've completed the cycle. The world really talks about you doing the work that you were meant to do, you know, so in that context, the Two of Swords is not you really avoiding. It's almost, it is, I'm hearing homeostasis, like you're keeping yourself balanced. You don't want to get sucked back into the, you know, the other thing is I'm getting kind of a sense of, you know, with cycles and balance, it's like you don't want to be imbalanced anymore. You know, you want to keep moving forward. You don't, you know, you're started your cycle. Your cycle has begun, you know, and and the world is a great completion. It's like a graduation. And you see that moon is the same. That moon is the same. So you're in the middle. You're already walking down the path. It's like, and you see you're facing the direction of the future too. You're walking towards the future. You're walking away from the emotion. So you see that. It's almost like that water is in the past and your Knight of Pentacles is your future. It's where you're headed. Now, when we go ahead and look at the future, we got three cards there. So I always think of it as the root, the stem, and the bloom. And you really have a gorgeous future. I'm really excited for you because this is really a good, such a wonderful Two of Swords meaning. But you've got at the root of your spread, you've got the Queen of Cups, and then the middle card you've got the Seven of Pentacles, and the apex of it, the manifestation of the energy is the Knight of Pentacles. So I really get the sense that it's almost like that little girl that was so romantic in the past has you've evolved, you've gone through your cycles, and you've come a long way, you've come such a long way. And I think the universe is really giving you praise because it's a hard thing to walk away from such good memories and to become, you know, this conflict really developed you, right? It really developed you. You've gone through a cycle, you've gone through a phase, and you know, you're graduating, you're moving forward. Now, your future energy, you know, the Queen of Cups is a very emotionally mature energy. And you know, the you've got it as your root, almost like that tree. You've got the root, and so the flowering of this energy is the Knight, right? And the Knight is very steady. I love Pentacle energy. But you see that he's slow and steady, so you're moving forward, you're making strides. It's not fast movement though. So, you know, the other thing is with the two being so stuck, at least you're not stuck anymore. You're moving forward, but it's slow and steady progress, right? You're in Knight of Pentacle energy, which means you're going on a journey. You're going on a journey. You're daring to explore, but you're taking your sweet time, right? You're doing the benefit of it being Pentacles too is that you're making very solid, you're making practical decisions, which is really good. You're doing what's right for you, and you're laying a foundation. But you see this guy is moving. You know, you see that you're going into that energy of the Knight where, you know, you're going to take your time, but you're going to do it right, right? And now, what's interesting is that the energy that leads up to it, you got the Seven of Pentacles, but what I was fascinated by was the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is such a mature energy. It's like you're not a girl anymore. You see this woman, this really mature masculine, you know, that not masculine, this really mature woman. The other thing is, you know, you see her feet in the water, her hands in the water, you know, instead of it being this ocean that's intimidating, the tsunami that's there to threatening to wipe you out, you've come to peace with it, right? And what you're doing is you're deciding where your life's taking you, right? The Seven of Pentacles, we had a tarot on it not too long ago. You're planting those seeds and you're like, okay, how much have I gained thus far? Is it growing fast enough? Is it what I need? Is it the right thing, you know? And you're doing that from such an emotionally mature place. It's so emotionally mature. It's really amazing, guys, because seriously, there's no beautiful combination more beautiful combination of that. And water and earth, water, cups and pentacles are very compatible. They work together, right? So I think, you've taken these past experiences, you've taken the good, you've learned from the bad, and you've really decided what you need, right? It's almost like you're not in that naive rose-colored glasses phase anymore. You're like, okay, and past relationships do that. Anytime you have a failed relationship, they teach you what you want, by trying and failing, and in the real world and life and career, and by trying and failing, it teaches you what you're good at, right? What you need, the right person for you. So whether this relationship, whether it's job related or family related, you're coming out of this, those battles have forged you. You're not going to stay, you're going to take the good energy of the memories of it, but you're going to remember the conflict, and you're going to say, okay, emotionally, what do I want? Emotionally, what do I want? It's like you're transitioning into that mature feminine energy. And you're taking an inventory of saying, okay, what have I gained so far? Is it enough for me? What else do I need, right? And you're taking that pentacle, and you're climbing mountains. You're conquering your challenges, and you're doing it slow and steady. And the beautiful thing about slow and steady energy is that, slow and steady energy will give you solid results. If you decide, okay, the type of people I've been dating in the past really haven't been working out. What can I do differently? What is it that I'm missing here, right? And you're coming at it from a very emotionally mature standpoint. So that almost guarantees success, guys. You're examining what you want. You're going to face that ocean, and you're going to make peace with that ocean. Anything, the emotional wants that you have that are churning under the surface, you're going to recognize them, and you're going to start making practical decision based on those wants. And there's no better recipe for success than that, guys. Whatever, you've experienced in the past, you're just like, okay, the other thing is with the knight, you're willing, you're coming from a queen energy into a knight's energy. You're willing to go on a journey, right? You're willing to draw from this past experience and say, okay, how can I learn from this? How can I get what it is that I want, right? And you really are, the beauty of her, wanting those emotions. The other thing is the phases of the moon really come into play here, because you're starting off in this journey now. You're in the first quarter moon. And by the time you get to that queen, you're going to be in your last quarter moon. Right? You're going to be completing the lunar cycle. You're really going to be, and this could be a full lunar cycle, because right now we are in that phase right now. Like that moon phase would literally be right now, like around the 23rd of September. And the other lunar phase might be towards the end of September, September 30th, so to speak, because the full moon would be right around October 2nd, right? And so, and honestly, it's coming very close to Pisces too. The full moon is very close to Pisces, which is a water sign. But either way, I just get such an emotional maturity of this. This could quite very well be something that occurs in the course of this month. Or, this could be something that's been progressing over time. This could, because the world is a major arcana, and usually that's a bigger kind of cycle that might be over the course of 6 months or a year. Where the moon, started full in one sign and then ended new in the same sign, 6 months later. But I'm so in love with that Queen of Cups energy, because look at her, she's holding that cup, right? And the Six of Cups, she's holding the cup too, but she just looks so naive. And here she's just holding the cup to the side. It's almost like, you got it mastered, babe. You could be a man or a woman in this energy, and you see the stars in the sky and the calm. The other thing is the calm waters. So you really are, you're using that emotional maturity to decide to plant the seeds of what it is that you want. The other thing is you're not afraid to journey to go find what you want, and you're willing to take your time. You're willing to put in the time that it needs. And I really get the sense you're not afraid of those waves anymore, which is such a strong, that I'm getting also a solid foundation. It's just so solid. Everything leading up to this was kind of volatile. And here you're really planting the seeds of something permanent, something that'll last, and you're willing to go out and journey and find that, whatever time it takes, you're willing to put in the right energy. So I see such a positive progression from that. It's almost like you're following the right course of action, given your past, right? And that's really you making lemonade too, guys, because seriously, the other thing is you have so much sun. You have so much sun, you're not letting the past turmoil hold you back. You're gonna get your stability. Now, your oracle card was really quite beautiful. First off, you got the number one for consciousness, which I thought was so, consciousness being the two, and the two of swords, being thoughts and emotions, psyche. So I was stoked about that. The other thing that I see is that there's a big synchronicity here, guys, because look at it. You've got mountains and you've got a sun, and you really see, it looks so warm. Look at that, and then you see this woman with really long hair. It does look like kind of a blonde person. It looks like the same woman, right? It looks like you if you're feminine or a masculine watching. But I just really think it's saying be optimistic, right? It's like it's almost like the sun is rising again. You've taken you've really evolved, and you've taken these experiences and grown. The tree is growth. It's and when you look at it, it's like all those seeds that you planted are finally growing all around you in this great wealth of abundance. And by you keeping that abundance mindset and having the optimism, it's just going to bring more to you. You are moving slow, but everything that you're going to grow is going to be steady and solid. A foundation is what I keep hearing. And I just think that's really gorgeous, guys. And honestly, the knight does go on a journey, and you look like that knight. You look like the feminine knight, right? And what it is the knight gets what he wants. He gets what he's going for, right? He takes his time. He takes his time. It's not overnight. But he takes his time, but you're going to get there. And I just think that's really wonderful. But wow, guys, that was really great reading. All three readings were wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure reading your cards. Um, Now, yep, let me go straighten that up. But I sincerely hope that you have a good week, and I thank you for joining me. We are, I appreciate you bearing with me through my technical difficulties. I think we managed to salvage everything. If you'd like to join me on Saturday, I will be back here first thing Saturday morning to post the weekly energy card reading. It's you get to choose from one of three tarot or oracle decks, and we go ahead and do a spread to see what the energies are like for the next 7 days. Otherwise, I hope I can catch you next Tuesday for the next How to Tarot. We're going to be talking about the very controversial, the feared, but yet still very prolific Three of Swords. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you later. Bye.